Peace and good and greetings once again from the Shrine of St. Anthony here in Ellicott City, Maryland. And we continue our consideration each week of the readings that we will be hearing at Mass on Sunday. We're coming up now already to the third Sunday in Lent. And today we'll focus upon the Gospel reading, as we've been doing so far this season. And once again, as we talked about last week, we want to read this reading, as it were, right, through the lenses of Lent. Right? We're in the Lenten season, so we want to focus upon these Lenten themes that are so important to our tradition. So as you're listening to the reading, even now, think in those terms. Remember that this is a reading that is coming to you during this season of Lent and is intended to encourage us on our Lenten journey. So this is from Luke's Gospel. Some people told Jesus about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mingled with the blood of their sacrifices. Jesus said to them in reply, "Do you think that because these Galileans suffered in this way, they were greater sinners than all other Galileans? By no means. But I tell you, if you do not repent, you will all perish as they did." Or those 18 people who were killed when the tower at Siloam fell on them. Do you think they were more guilty than everyone else who lived in Jerusalem? By no means. But I tell you, if you do not repent, you will all perish as they did. And he told them this parable. There once was a person who had a fig tree planted in his orchard. And when he came in search of fruit on it, but found none, he said to the gardener, "For 3 years now I have come in search of fruit on this fig tree, but have found none. So, cut it down. Why should it exhaust the soil?" He said to him in reply, "Sir, leave it for this year also, and I shall cultivate the ground around it and fertilize it. It may bear fruit in the future. If not, you can cut it down." One of the great challenges for many people to come to faith in the triune God is something very real in their lives and in their observation of life. Right? We proclaim that we believe in a God who is all good, and indeed, God is all good. If that is true, then why is there so much suffering in the world, right? Why do bad things happen to innocent people especially, right? We can just look around at the world, right? Why does a small child, an innocent child, get cancer, suffer and die? Right? Why do so many people suffer through wars, and just simply, it seems, to enrich others' power and the wealth of the military-industrial complex? Why do so many babies, why are they destroyed in their mother's womb? All these horrible things that we observe in our world. How can we believe in a God who is good? Jesus is speaking about this understanding in the first part of the reading today. In the Hebrew Scriptures and in our popular thinking, you might say, right? But in the Hebrew Scriptures especially, there was this notion that if bad things happen to you, you must have done something bad. Think back to the book of Job, right? Job has all these horrible things happen to him, and his so-called friends are telling him, Job, you must have done something bad. Now, that is not the case, as it turns out, right? But that was the popular understanding, and that was the understanding of the people of Jesus' day, and hence the question, what about those Galileans who were slaughtered by Pilate, right? Were they more guilty than anybody else? No. What about those people in Jerusalem that the tower at Siloam fell on them and killed them? Were they more guilty than the other people in Jerusalem? No, they weren't. That's not the point. Indeed, why is there suffering in the world? It comes down to a very basic reason that we learn from the very beginning chapters of the Scriptures. Why is there bad stuff in the world? Because of sin. These horrible things that we notice and see everywhere, right? All innocent people suffering. Why? Ultimately, it comes down to sin. Right? And therefore, Jesus' response, right? Do you think these people who suffered were worse than anybody else? No, by no means, he says twice. But I tell you, whenever you hear that in the Scriptures, you know there's something really important coming. Right? Because Jesus is about to make a very important clarification, right? But I tell you, if you, me, do not repent, you will all perish as they did. He says the same thing in the exact same words twice in this passage. We live in a world that is overcome with sin, it seems. That's just the reality. Just read the newspaper any given day. Watch the news. Right? People used to talk about, and maybe they still do, this notion of social sin, as if the world is somehow guilty of sin. Well, there's a certain, I guess in a metaphorical sense, that's true, but not really, right? Every sin begins, or sin rather, is rooted in individual sins. Every time we fail, we are contributing, right, to the chaos in the world, to the disorder in the world, to the suffering in the world. And therefore, what is the proper response? Repent. A good Lenten theme. That is the response. And indeed, first as individuals, right, we need to repent, all of us, because as Jesus reminds us in this text today, all are sinners. We all sin, we all fail, we all mess up, we're all selfish, right? We all seek power. And the call is to repent. Individually, but also collectively, you might say, right? Because every sin contributes to the suffering in the world. Hence, that message of Lent, repent. As we heard perhaps when you got your ashes on Ash Wednesday, turn away from sin, right? That's the first part. And believe in the gospel, right? It's two movements. You can't just have repent, right? But believe. In fact, that's why we repent, so that we can, right? We turn away from sin so that we can believe in the good news. And what is the good news today? It comes in the parable, which is kind of a curious little parable, right? about this fig tree that doesn't seem to want to produce anything, and it's been there for 3 years, and it's produced nothing. Right? And the man who owns the tree comes in the 3rd year and says, look at this thing, no fruit again. And tells the gardener, isn't that interesting? Right? The gardener, chop this thing down, it's wasting the soil, it's using up a lot of resources. Right? But what does the gardener say? Let me have at it 1 more year. Give me some time. Right? Let me tend to it. Let me cultivate it, fertilize it, and it may bear fruit in the future. You might remember from the resurrection accounts, who does Mary Magdalene think the risen Jesus is? The gardener. And indeed, that's who the gardener is in the parable. The gardener is Jesus. The owner of the tree is the Father. Right? And the Father looks at the fig tree of the world, as it were, and says, this is messed up, get rid of it. And Jesus says, no, give it time. You know, after life itself, one of the most precious gifts we have is time. Because time allows us to repent and believe in the gospel. Right? Time allows us to repent and believe. And that is the way to salvation. Right? So in the words of the great Francis of Assisi, while we have time, let us do good. Thank you for joining us today for our continuation of this series of reflections on the Sunday readings. Hopefully we'll be back again next week to continue with that for the 4th Sunday of Lent. It's moving along quickly here. Just a reminder that we're continuing our online talk series on an introduction to Christian spirituality. The first talk is on YouTube on our Companions of St. Anthony channel. It's gotten quite a few views. Hopefully, if you haven't seen it, maybe you might want to, and if you got about an hour to spare, give it a view. Maybe you might find something interesting there. And we just did the live recording of the second talk of the series last night, and that will be showing up on YouTube as well in the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. We seem to get a lot more views on the YouTube recording than we do in the live version because people have to show up at a particular time. But we're grateful for those people who do come live because it makes it a little more lively and we're talking to real people rather than me just talking to the camera and Mr. Producer here. So we're grateful for your participation in that. And again, just a reminder that we thank you for all your support. You are our companions here of St. Anthony. We're all in this together, right? We are all on this Lenten journey together. We're all seeking to repent together so that we can believe together. So thank you for your support. And a reminder, we're grateful for your support of us, your donations, which allow us to keep doing these things. So if you'd like to, we'd be very grateful if you'd hit the donate button and to continue to help us to do this ministry to the world, if you will, to this church without walls, as we say. So until next time, know you're remembered in our prayers here at the Friary each evening. And until next time, peace and good.